Well, it is an interesting time, I must say. I was thinking tonight we're honoring all of these companies that are doing so many amazing things. And one of the interesting things for me is that you can go into a company, like a Dow, and you can see some absolutely amazing things. And yet no one knows about these. So you go to other companies and you say, geez, you know what you're doing at Dow, what they're doing? No, I don't know what they're doing. And so one of the things as this field of corporate responsibility has sort of grown up is that two things that I notice. One is there's a lot of innovation springing up all over. But at the same time, companies have a really difficult time communicating this because how do you go around talking about this? I mean, they're sort of nervous about touting their own, deeds, and yet we're losing, I think, a lot of the really interesting issues about that. So that's sort of one thing I'd say. The other issue that comes to my mind is this gap between. In some ways, corporate responsibility has arrived. I mean, all of the surveys of CEOs said, yeah, this is strategic, it's important, etc. But when you dig in, it doesn't go very deep. And I always liked the Verizon folks who said, we're trying to learn the discipline of corporate responsibility. And I think most companies are really trying to learn what this is all about. I mean, that's sort of my take.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything Brad has said, but that's typical of me. And, I just think that when Brad and I were working together and what we see now, if you're a company worth your salt, you do an annual corporate responsibility report.
Yeah.
You've got a tremendous professional CSR team. You've got a great environmental waste management program, and you're starting to reduce your carbon footprint. And you got a few really great signature initiatives that are very innovative, okay? But the question is, what's next?
Right.
All right, where do you take the business from here? How do you actually make the business sustainable? And how do you make the business of sustainability sustainable itself?
Yeah.
So we really need to see that next leap, that next transformation. And I think the field here is starting to get there. I think every year we see in these awards that the companies
I think the companies have two huge challenges. One is external. I was talking this afternoon about this issue of complexity, the new IBM CEO survey, where the first time the executives, the CEO said, the issue that's killing us is this complexity, and we're not sure we can manage the level of complexity. So all of these social and environmental issues that you didn't even dream were part of your world as a company now are on it. So that's one part. The other one, I think, is internal. I always think the test of a company is, I said, if I could take a sample of employees out for a minute, and I'm going to ask them three questions. What is this corporate responsibility here at Cargill or whatever the company is? Why is it strategic to the company? And what can you do to sort of contribute to that? I'm afraid we're kind of disappointed at the answers because we still haven't it really hasn't become part and parcel yet the way a quality movement had to go through this same process. So I have to remind myself, we're still at such early stages, but I think the external is pushing companies a lot faster now to get on board, and that's why they're so desperate, I think, to try and catch up on this.
Because when you talk about complexity, the game has really changed. And in a sense, anyone who is sort of rational doesn't need a business case for this anymore. You look at the impact of climate change, you look at water scarcity, the food security, energy, access to health, access to technology, the list goes on.
Yeah.
That makes the business case by itself. And so the real challenge for successful businesses is, how are you going to deal with that complexity? How are you going to manage those issues and create solutions for them?
Right.
If you can't, you can't wall up your office anymore. These things are going to affect you, they're going to affect the consumers, your employees, everything.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point in that. So, I mean, we're sort of at this very interesting juncture now where the world is changing so quickly. And, if you expand this just a little bit into a global, framework, if you go over to Asia or you go to India, I mean, the thirst around CSR is absolutely enormous. But they too are trying to figure out, well, what does this mean? And what do we as a company begin to do? And how does the context in India or Brazil or wherever begin to shape this? And so for many companies in this room today, they're faced with operating in all these environments. So again, the learning curve here is so steep, I think, on this.